our Imam, our Ustad, our Doctor, Imam Abdullah Shu'aib. Bismillah.
Oh, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has given us another opportunity to meet today. We pray Allah accept whatever we are going to say as an act of ibadah for both the speaker as well as the listeners, and we also pray that He put it in the scale of every one of us, particularly our good scale and Yawm al-Qiyamah. Let me just continue from where we stopped. We are going to also look at the role of Zakat. Majorly, Zakat play about 4 important roles. One is the spiritual role. Zakat, is out to purify and safeguard man from unwanted desires and to free him from the whims and caprices of the nerves, which will never be satisfied, because that is the way human beings have been created. And that is why our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was commanded by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to convey his revelations to humanity in Quran chapter 92, from verse 5 to 7, where Allah says, as for him who gave out his wealth for Allah's sake and abstained from disobeying Allah and also affirmed the truth of goodness, these are the people, Allah says, we shall facilitate for them the way to bliss, i.e. to Al-Jannah. And Allah mentioned, says, and the God-fearing shall be kept away from the blazing hellfire. وَسَيُجَنَّبُ وَلَأَتِقَ الَّذِي يُؤْتِي مَالَهُ يَتَزَكَّى. That is, those who give out of their wealth as means of charity. These are the people, Allah says, we shall save them from the blazing of hellfire. Zakat in this area is out to purify both the minds and our resources that Allah has given to us, which is an amana. On the moral side of the role of Zakat, it is meant to instill moral qualities and uprightness in man and washes away those amoradul kulub, that is, those ailments of the heart, such as greediness, the desire to always want to acquire, resources without any limit, our excessiveness and overzealousness in wealth accumulation, which is part of human nature. But Allah has used Zakat here to regulate it. And that is why when Allah cautions humanity in Quran chapter 102, Surah Al-Takathur, is very, very popular verse. It is to remind us of the nature of man. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in one of the hadith, he mentioned, also corroborating these verses of the Quran, that لو أن لابن آدم ملء واد مالا لأحب أن يكون إليه مثله ولا يملأ ابن آدم إلا تراب. Meaning that if the son of Adam had a valley that is full of wealth, he will still want more, another one similar to what he has, but nothing will satisfy his desire. Illa turab, until he enters the grave and is covered with dust. So in this aspect, Zakat is also out to regulate our moral shortcomings. Thirdly is the social role of Zakat. Zakat is meant to instill empathy, not just sympathy, empathy in the minds of the faithful with a view to eradicating the biggest of all social problems, and that is poverty. And that is why you find so many hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that speaks in this direction. I will mention maybe 2 or 3 of these hadith. There is this hadith that is also popular, hadith Numa bin Bashir, where the Prophet gave a similitude, of human beings using our physical nature. It says, مثل المؤمنين في توادئهم وتراؤمهم وتراتحهم كمثل الجسد الواحد إذا اشتق منه عضو تداعى له سائر الأعضاء بالسهم والهمة. The similitude of the believers, he says, in their affection, in their mercy and sympathies to one another, is like the entire body, such that if one aspect of the body organ is afflicted with an ailment, the entire body system will not be okay. They will be suffering from insomnia and fever. So here, Zakat wants us to also empathize, put ourselves in the shoe of the poorest of the poor and the needy, and then be able to appreciate what they have been undergoing over 11 months. Talk less of just 1 month. And the Prophet ﷺ also went further. In one of the hadith, he says, Man asbaha wala ya'tammu bi umuri al-muslimina falaysa minhu. Whoever has the privilege of waking up in a day and without feeling concern for the less privileged, for the poor people, for the needy in the community, he is not one of us. He is not one of them. So here, one of the mechanisms Allah has given to us to empathize with them and then to appreciate what they are doing is for us to be able to relate. And I did mention 2 weeks ago, where I recall I said, do you know why Allah always mentions Salat and Zakat together? It is because they are, like 5 and 6. Islam wants us to always observe our Salat, especially the obligatory ones in Jama'ah. The hikmah behind this is for the leader, that is either the Amir or the Imam or the chairman or the president of the community, to be able to know who are the members of that ummah who are suffering from deprivations or who are facing a lot of difficulties in their way of life, so that when Zakat is paid, they know where to disburse those Zakat funds to. If people don't come to the masjid and we don't interact, for us to be able to know who and who, it will be very difficult for those who are in need, to be identified in the community. At the same time, those who are very rich among us, if they don't come to the masjid, how are we going to identify them? That is one of the hikmah. So when you pray together, you know one who. So when you don't see A or B or C, certainly the leader has a responsibility to make inquiry as to why we have not been seeing such a person over a period of time. The last hadith I'm going to also quote here is another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned to us when he said, لَيْسَ الْمُؤْمِنِ الَّذِي يُشْبِعُ وَجَارَهُ جَاعِعٌ إِلَى جَنْبِهِ. He's not a true believer, that fellow, that believer, that Muslim, that we always eat to his food, and yet his next neighbor goes to bed with hunger, and he is aware that they don't have. So zakat is meant in this area to also, alleviate their problems and the challenges. The last but not the least is the economic role of zakat. It is meant to prevent the unpleasant accumulation of wealth in a few hands and seeks to establish a society in which wealth, goods, and services are both equitably distributed, shared, and then we care for one another. In Quran chapter 59, Surah Al-Ashr, specifically verse 7, Allah says, لِكَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ. Why we ask the rich to pay zakat is so that this wealth will not be accumulated by very few, the richest one amongst you, to the detriment of the multitude. And then the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned to us in another hadith that was, related by, it was narrated by Ibn Mas'ud, but related by At-Tabarani with a very sound isnad. When he said, Amarana, he said, the Prophet of Allah, may Allah peace and blessing be upon him, Amarana, the Iqam is Salati, he commanded us to establish regular prayers, wa ita is zakat, and then to give out zakat. And he now says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يُزَكِّي مَا لَهُ فَلَا صَلَاةَ لَهُ. Whoever fails to do what? To pay in zakat when he is due, even though if such a person observe salat, فَلَا صَلَاةَ لَهُ. He doesn't have salat. May Allah save us from that. That tells us how important zakat is. Now let us come to the main issue of the zakatable items. We have mentioned, I don't know whether I mentioned that at the last time we met, that there are two types of zakat. We have zakatul fitri, we have zakat itself, which is the third pillar of Islam. Zakatul fitri is the one in which we cannot give it out at any time, illa, that is, except at the tail end of Ramadan. From the 27th day, 28th day, 29th day, or the 38th day, as the case may be, of Ramadan, before we observe Salatul Eid. That is the time you can give out your Zakatul Fitri. Any other month, we don't give out Zakatul Fitri. So it is restricted. And we all know Zakatul Fitri can be given out with any edible meals that is very common in the society where the Muslims reside. And of course, jurists have equally, come up with verdicts, the juristic verdicts, that looking at the maslaha of our time in a region where using the staple food will not bring benefits to the recipient of the Zakatul Fitri, it can be given with money, not necessarily given out with all those staple foods. But where we are going today is to look at the compulsory aspect of the zakat. Some of these items are, number one, we are talking of gold that has been refined, in which they are mixed with some other ornaments to make trinkets, to make bangles and their lights or rings. These are gold or silver or ornaments. There are two positions among the fuqaha on this. Those that belong to the school of Imam Malik and their likes are of the opinion that gold, no matter what it is put to, no matter its usefulness, for as long as the nisab of that gold has been attained, which is 85 grams and above, or 595 grams for silver and above, whether the owner of that gold uses the gold regularly or they keep it for investment, zakat on that gold, which is 2.5%, must be given out. That is their position. And there are so many other hadith that also supports that. But the second position are those that says, because zakat, there is no zakat on anything that one consume. For example, the clothes I'm wearing, the spectacle I'm putting on, the cap I'm using, the laptop I'm using, or any other items in our home that we are using, or our shoes that we are using for our personal use. And the same applies with gold that our women are using, because gold is only allowed for women in Islam to be used. Men are only allowed to use silver. So anything that one consume, there is no zakat on it. Even including the houses that we build, the cars that we also buy, there is no zakat on it. So this second position align with that. They also have their own evidences, which back, their positions. However, the middle, point is that if our women have gold that they are not using on a regular basis, that is, they only use the gold maybe once in a year, they use the gold. And such gold, when we weigh it in terms of their carats, whether they are 9 or they are 10, they are 12, they are 14, they are 18, they are 22, they are 24, carats, the moment they attain the nisab of zakat, that gold is not something you use on a daily basis. It is money kept, in anticipation of, the raining days. Zakat must be paid. 2.5% of that must be paid the moment it is up to the nisab and above. So if something we use them on a regular basis, there is no zakat on it. The second, item, and the same thing applies with silver for both men and women. If there are things we use on a daily basis, there is no zakat. But if we buy them and we keep them and we sell them, use them, it is tantamount to somebody, hoarding, an item, and it is not useful to him, because when you hoard it, it is either the value will depreciate or the value will appreciate. But the philosophy of zakat here is social justice. So if it is up to the nisab for silver, which is 595 grams, zakat must be paid. So the second zakatable items are cash in hand, cash or trading goods or liquid assets that we have. So if you have money either in the banks, you have several bank accounts, or you are a trader, the stocks you have in store and the one you have just bought, to replenish what you have sold out, these items at the end of the year, when you are doing your accounting, auditing of your accounts, after taking out all your liabilities, if the net balance of what you have is up to the nisab of zakat, then, which is 2.5%, then we must pay, zakat, to those to whom it is due. And, the nisab is 85 grams, the value of 85 grams and above. And if you recall last time, I also mentioned that in the Nigerian context, we're talking of, 1 million, and 110,440, naira, which is the Nigerian equivalent of the current nisab. So when we convert that to pounds, we can understand what it means. The third category of items that are also, zakatable are what is referred to in fiqh as rikas. Rikas are treasures buried under the surface of the earth, such as crude oil, diamonds, precious stones, mines, and their like. The nisab for this one is any quantity of this particular mineral, resources that has been extracted, any amount. But the rate of zakat to be taken out of that is specific, because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned to us, he says, and from buried treasures is humus. Humus is 1/5 of that particular mineral resources, and 1/5 is equivalent to 20%. So whatever the amount of the mineral resources extracted from the surface of the earth, no matter the quantity, no matter the gram. When we measure its value, we take out 20% of the value, and that is the rate of zakat. Because if you look at Quran chapter 2, verse 267, it's very specific on this. Where Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, anfiqu min tayyibatin ma kasabtum wa mimma akhrajna lakum min al-ard. Allah says, O you who believe, spend from the good things which you have earned, and from that which we have produced for you from the earth. So this verse is telling us of whatever we are able to extract, either from the deepest part of the sea or on a dry ground, for as long as they fall into the category of precious stones, mine, diamonds, gold, and their like, no matter the quantity, the rate of zakat is 20%. Let us do a simple mathematical calculation. I'm sorry, I'll be using, dollar and naira figure. Then we can always, convert to pounds. Let us look at the NNPC projection for Nigeria for the year 2020 budget. Their projection is 1.7 million per day of barrel per day that Nigeria made in its budget. 1 million barrel per day. And if you multiply that by the amount, the selling price of a barrel per day, which has come down drastically to $20 per day, converting this $20, using the Nigerian current exchange rate, that is $1 to naira is equivalent to 388 naira 0.70 kobo. When you multiply this by 1.7 million barrel per day multiplied by $20, we give you about 34 million US dollar. If you multiply that by 388.7 naira, it will give you nothing less than 13 billion 218 million and 180,000 naira. That is per day that we'll be getting from selling of 1.7 million barrel per day extracted. Now, if you now divide this figure of 13 billion 218 million and 180,000, you divide it by 20%, it will give you, which is the rate of zakat on it, it will give you nothing less than 660 million 909,000 naira. That is just for a day. So if you multiply this by 22 days, what we are going to get will amount to what? 14 billion, 14.5 billion for a month on a conservative figure of 22 days per month. It gives you 14.5 billion. Now, when you now multiply that 22 days per 12 months, that is by using a conservative figure of 264 days rather than 265 days, is going to give us nothing less than 174 billion 479 million 976,000 naira as the zakat. This figure I've just given you is just a very conservative figure for the production projection. I have not removed what will be the cost of production. If we remove all the cost of production to be incurred in the cost of producing this crude oil, of course, the value will come down. But just to give you a picture of what will be the quantum of zakat that Nigerians can raise when Muslims pay zakat. So most of the Muslims that own oil blocks in Nigeria, most companies that are dealing in oil, they have crude oil, they have blocks where they extract crude oil. If they are paying zakat as they are expected to pay zakat, sincerely speaking, Muslims in this part of the world will control the economy of Nigeria. And any government in power will respect the views of the Muslims. But of course, we all know that most Muslims who own oil blocks in Nigeria, they are not paying the exact zakat they are expected to pay. So the fourth items also on the zakat table are agricultural produce. Zakat on agricultural produce are special, in their own, because they don't have to wait. Not all of them will have to wait for 12 lunar months, which we mentioned and in the last lecture as one of the conditions, for governing zakat payment. But in the case of agricultural produce, Allah says in Quran chapter 6, verse 141, that some produce such as maize, rice, beans, cashew, groundnut, palm kernel, guinea corn, and their likes. If these items are things that are produced 3 or 4 times in a year, Allah says in this particular verse, chapter 6, verse 141, that you pay the due of zakat on them on the day they are harvested. So it means you don't have to wait for 12 lunar months. So the farmer must pay the zakat due on this. And the sum of zakat for some of these items are 5 wasak. 5 wasak is equivalent to 1,200 mudus. The mudu is the one we use. In some climate in Nigeria, they say a 2 handful of a grain is equivalent to 1 mudu. But of course, we have mudu measurements. So 5 wasak is equal to 1,200 mudus. And if you want to weigh on kilograms, we are talking of 653 kilograms per harvest. And the farmer is only allowed to weigh and pay zakat on 2/3 of whatever they harvest. So 1/3 of that harvest, Allah, gives it out to the zakat farmer as his own share. So when they make the harvest, they must divide it into 3 equal parts. So 2/3 of 3 is to be given out as zakat. It is on that one that you weigh and that you measure whether it is up to the nisab of zakat. If it is up to the nisab of zakat, which is 653 kilograms or 1,200 mudu or 5 wasak, then the rate of zakat to be paid on them is if the farmer produces them on irrigated land, that is land in which the farmer did not exert any additional costs, to produce those things. It is a land where the farmer, due to the courtesy of Allah, Allah's mercy, he uses the natural, resources of Allah to produce it. The zakat rate is 5%. But if the zakat, the produce were not naturally irrigated, that is, they were, irrigated through additional effort of the farmer by employing some other means. Maybe he borrowed a tractor, maybe again he has to, buy water, from tanker sellers to bring to his farm. There are additional costs on the land. Then Allah is so merciful. Allah says, that particular, produce, the cost should also come down. So it is going to be, 10%. And if it is hybrid, the farmer uses to produce a combination of natural irrigation and non-natural irrigation, he is mixing the two together. The zakat rate is going to be 7.5%. So this is the, way zakat is to be paid on agricultural produce. And of course, still under this, in the past, there was no zakat on fruits because of the perishable nature of those food items. But today, due to technology and due to advancement in agricultural way of doing things, today fruits have commercial values, just like those food items I mentioned earlier. So we have pawpaw, which is perishable. We have tomato, which is perishable. We have oranges, we have pineapples, we have bananas. All these, they are perishables. But they also can be extracted into fruit juice. And because of the commercial nature, contemporary scholars have also come to the position that they too are zakatable. That whatever their value, if it is up to 85 grams, they're up to the value of 85 grams of gold, then, or 595 grams of silver, the zakat rate on them is 2.5%. So these 6 items is poultry farming, snail rearing, and then rabbit keeping. These are also animals that farmers can also indulge in doing their businesses. If the value of all these items, or each one of them, is equivalent to the monetary value of 85 grams of gold or 595 grams of silver, the same zakat rate is 2.5%. So at the end of the year, the farmer will do his accounting, and then if the farmer net balance is up to this amount of the sum of zakat, it takes 2.5% and pay. The 7 items are honey, groundnut, or palm oil. The nisab for these items also differs with that of farm produce. It differs. It differs with that of fruit as well. The nisab for groundnut oil, for honey, for palm oil is if the value of these items is up to 160 liters or 653 kilograms, then it means these items also are zakatable. And the zakat rates on them also differs with farm produce. For example, if the honey is extracted or is extracted from plain grounds, that is the ground from where the farmer extracts all this honey is plain, it's not hilly, it's not a slopey area, very easy to do the extractions. The person is expected, the moment the value is up to 160 liters or 500 or 653 kilograms, the person will only pay 1/10 of the value of this item. So, but if the ground on which the farmer extract this item are hilltops or mountains, difficult terrain, look at how merciful Allah is. The zakat rate will come down. The zakat rate is 120, lesser than the first one. That is, the juristic verdict on it. So you can also see, if you look at 160 liters, 160 liter, by the time you divide 160 liter by maybe 4 liters, how many liters will they give you in the market? And if you look at the whole value of it, the whole value of it is not up to 110,440 naira. It's not up to it. But this is the verdict on honey, groundnut, or palm oil. So it differs with, zakatul mal, it differs with zakat money, it differs with gold, it differs with farm produce. So each one of them has their different nisab and different zakat rate. Always bear in mind the philosophy of zakat: social justice, equity, and social justice. So now let us look at another zakatable item, coming down to milk. Milk, if somebody is a farmer dealing in milk, the farmer has, has cows, but the farmer is not selling the cows, but the milk the farmer extract from the cows is what the farmer is selling. So the same, nisab for honey, for groundnut oil, for palm oil, the same nisab for milk. The one you extract from the cow. If the value is up to 160 liters or 653 kilograms, the zakat you are going to pay on it is 2.5%. 2.5%. You can see the difference between this one and honey and groundnut oil and palm oil. In the case of groundnut oil or palm oil or honey, their zakat rate differs, like I mentioned. If it is extracted from plain grounds, it is 1/10. If it is extracted from hilltops or mountainous environment, it is going to be 120. Because of the difficulties, the farmer may likely incur some additional costs to be able to get what he wants. But in the case of milk, the zakat rate is 2.5%. Following this is zakat on cow plus milk. If a farmer has cows and this cow they also produces milk, and the farmer also chooses to sell the cow and the milk, the nisab of this one is different from the nisab of somebody who's selling pure milk. The nisab is if the value of the cow you are selling is up to the value of 85 grams of gold. And if it is up to that, the zakat rate is going to be 2.5%. But if it is only milk, I said if the value is up to 160 liters or 653 kilograms, that is for milk selling alone, then the nisab is 2.5%. But if it is cow that is producing milk that the person is selling them, then the value, if it is up to 85 grams and above, the zakat rate is 2.5%. You can see the variation in the nisab and the value. So let us come down to landed properties or land or landed properties. Like somebody mentioned 2 weeks ago, a question on this. The first thing a zakat worker will do when he wants to assess the will-be zakat payer is we will ask the person this question, which is very, very important. What is your niyyah on the land or the landed property? That is, what is your intention? Do you want to sell for commercial? You want to buy the land for commercial purpose, or you want to build the property for commercial purpose, or you want to build or buy it for residential purpose? That is the first thing we ask, because the intention will determine whether the land or the landed property will be zakatable or not. So if the answer is it is not meant for commercial purpose, then there is no zakat on the land or on the landed property. There is no zakat. Don't even go further to start asking any question. And if the person cannot give you a straightjacket answer, the person is still thinking, he has not come up with a position, he has not made up his mind, then we leave the person. So the person at that particular point, will not pay zakat because the person has not made up his mind. But if the answer is that, this land I'm buying, I'm buying it for commercial purpose, so with the intent that maybe in the next 1 year or 2 years, the value will appreciate, then I will resell. Or this, building I'm building, this house I'm building, these 4 flats of 2-story, of 1-story building, I want to rent it out so that I can earn income. That is commercial. Then, such a landed property or land, when we look at the value of that land at that material time, after that land has actually elapsed 1 lunar month, we look at what is the current value of the land, not the value of when he bought the land, but the current value. If it is up to, the value is up to 85 grams of gold and above, then that landed property or that land is zakatable. and the zakat rate is 2.5%. So that is the juristic verdict on it. And if somebody has 4 flats, for example, or 2 flats, for example, he uses one for his own personal use and his family, then the remaining one, he rents it out. So the zakat to be paid will no longer be on the cost of building the property, because it is assumed that before the man or the woman built that property, that person had actually paid zakat from the money with which the person built the property, so that we will not be guilty of double zakat. So zakat will not be on the value of the building, but zakat will be based on what is the rental income from the building. So if the rental income from the building is up to the value of 85 grams and above of gold, then the person will pay 2.5% on that landed property. So people who are into estates, business, they build estates. They build several duplexes, several flats, several self-contained or studio, houses, and they are like. If the niyyah is for commercial, they must pay zakat on those properties, on the rental income from the zakat, after they have netted out the utility costs, which some people call service charges. Even though some people today don't build the service charges on the rental income, they also collect service charges exclusive of the rental income. So the moment you remove the service charges from the rental income, then the person should not make any deduction. So the full rental income, we value it. If it is up to the sum of gold, the value of the sum of gold and above, then the person pays 2.5%. So we also have zakat on companies or transport businesses, or one-man business or artisans. On this one, there are 2 positions. That the moment, at the end of the year of your accounting, if the value in terms of what remains of the value of the items the person is trading in or dealing with is up to the value of 85 grams and above of gold, using net profit of the company, to do the calculation. That is, we are not basing it on the gross, income, but net, which means the person has to remove all expenses. Then the zakat rates to be paid on these are 2. The person has the freedom to choose either 5% or to choose 10% of the profits from the property. The second opinion is that if the businessman wants to use gross assets minus gross or total liability, then if the business, the value of it is also up to 85 grams of gold and above, the zakat rate this time will be 2.5%. You can see the variation in it. It's different from the first one, because the first one is using net profits. That is why what the person will pay is has a choice to make either 5% or 10%. But where you are using total asset less, total liability, the person will only, make use of 2.5% as the zakat rate. For salary earners, in this case, according to, scholars and fuqaha on this, they classify salary earners into 3 categories. Remember the philosophical underpinning of zakat payments, which is social justice, equity. Remember the farmer that is producing, milk, honey, groundnut oil. We said the nisab of zakat for that person is 160 liters. By the time you look at the value of 160 liters, it is totality of it, the minimum will not be up to 1,110,440 naira. It's not up to it. But the person must pay zakat. Now, coming back to a salary earner, scholars categorize salary earners into 3, classes. Number 1, we are talking of salary earners that belong to the class of those, after making deductions of their personal needs, things they cannot compromise, things they cannot go out or tell their friends to help them to bear the cost, like paying your house rent, like paying your utility bills, like providing food for your family, like paying your children's school fees, taking care of their health needs, and their lives. These are things that you cannot compromise. They are basic things. You're transporting your fare to your place of work, to and fro. These are things that you must bear. That is the essence of why you are working. If after taking out all these costs and what remains from their income per annum, including their extra codes, including their outstation allowances, including their travel allowances, all these things put together, including 13-month allowances, put them all together. You have taken out all your basic expenses, and what remains from your account when you do simple calculation at the beginning of the year, what remains is far above 1,110,440 naira in the Nigerian context. That person, without any doubt whatsoever, is liable to pay zakat. And what is the zakat rate? It is 2.5% or 1/48 of the net balance. This category of salary earner does not need to make any argument. He is zakatable or she is zakatable without any prejudice to whatever X you want to buy here and there. There are differences from basic needs. There are differences also in terms of luxuries or ostentatious things. I was saying it, whether last 2 weeks or in another forum, so many of us that are very rich, that earns good, good income, we buy, things we don't need, which we call wants, because every human being wants this, wants that. There is a difference between want and need. A need is something that you cannot do away with. The wants are something that just your nerves, that's your inner mind, just want it. It is not because you need it. So many people build, their expenditure, axis with so many items that they don't need, that they just want to buy it because of their social status or because of the nerves. So that is why for such people, they don't have to argue. They should pay. Whatever you build on your expenditure axis, it is the making of yourself. They are not needs, they are wants. The second category of people, salary earners, are those that it is in and out. They do in and out. The total salary packages, including extra costs, allowances, and their likes, is sufficient to cater for their basic needs, but they don't have any left over in their account. So they don't have any needs to beg people before they take care of their family. What they are earning is sufficient to take care of their needs. But the only difference there is that they don't have much in terms of what they are saving. So this category of people, they do not fall into the category of those who are supposed to pay zakat, going by the zakat, nisab. Though some other fuqaha or some other school of thought will argue that they can pay zakat. If we look at it from the point of view of silver, that is another argument which I'm not ready to go into. Though I have my own position as a zakat worker as well as an expert in zakat. However, this second category, if they should venture into cooperative by saving amongst maybe 10 or 20 people, and by the time the person is going to collect his own, and we discover that what he has collected is far above the nisab of zakat for gold, which is 1,110,440 naira from that collective cooperative savings. Juristic verdict on this is that that salary earner will pay zakat on that cooperative income that he had just collected, not on his salary. So instanta, he will pay zakat on the cooperative income he collected. That is the verdict. The third category of salary earners are those that their total remuneration, cannot, sustain them for 22 days in a month. Without, being extravagant, cannot sustain them. And we all know this type of people. By the time he collects his salary, before the second week, he has gone broke. He has to be, managing somehow, either to trade some distances before he enter, transport buses, or he will eat, maybe once in a day, in order to at least ensure that whatever he's earning will take them manageably, maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. Such categories of salary earner, they fall into Zakat beneficiaries. So the next item, also on this, has to do with gifts. If you collect gifts, that the value of that gift or money is equal to or above the nisab of Zakat for gold, you don't have to wait till 1 year. Immediately remove 2.5% and give it out as Zakat. If you recall 2 weeks ago when I was giving the position of some of the Tabi'in and the scholars of the Prophet, the companion of the Prophet, that on the spot they collected, Zakat, collected gift, and then, Muawiyah and Co. immediately removed Zakat from that gift without waiting for the how. That is the verdict on gifts. That is up to that nisab of Zakat. Except the person who is collecting the gift, has a debt on his neck, a debt that can compromise his basic needs, then that person is exempted from paying Zakat, because the essence of you paying Zakat, that is the maslaha, the benefit there, is to alleviate the suffering of the poor and the needy. So if the person himself, if he should take out, that Zakat, it will make his own life more miserable. That person is also a beneficiary, doesn't need. Then another one I'm going to also talk about is the professionals. Many of us who are professionals, accounting or accountants, or lawyers, or engineers or architects, or economics and their like. Some they do consultancy 2, 3, 4 times in a year or 5 times in a year, and they pay them their money. And when we look at the money they collect, it's far above the nisab of Zakat, far above it. Such people, contemporary scholars like Yusuf Qaradawi, Az-Zuhaili, and their likes, are of the opinion that such people should not wait till the how, should not wait for 1 year before they pay their Zakat. They should pay their Zakat immediately. Looking at the case of a farmer, that the moment the farmer harvests the produce, the Quran says, he should pay the Zakat on the day of the harvest. So why should a professional, that is even in a more comfortable zone than that farmer, will now be arguing that I'm going to wait till 12 months before I pay my Zakat? It is going to, affect the Zakat he is likely to pay if he has to wait till 12 months. Because the person will tell you, for whatever reasons, I'm unable to do that.
Imam Abdullah.
So I think I have overshone or passed the time allocated to me.
Nah.
So let me just stop at this junction, that the issue of Zakat is so wide that if you want to rush it, we will not be able to do justice to so many issues surrounding Zakat, because we have not talked about so many other items, particularly contemporary means of earning money today, which has to do with stocks, with shares, our pensions, and of course the investment that we have in so many companies. There are positions of Zakat on all these items, which I have not even had the opportunity of going into, talk less of looking at what are the benefits of Zakat, what are the qualities of Zakat workers, then what are the consequences for not paying Zakat if somebody is zakatable. However, we always have the opportunity, may Allah continue to spare our lives, for another day, to always look at this issue. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خيرا for that extensive